Hello and welcome back. I am Rhea Sylvia and I am here with TKBreezy, an esports commentator. And I'm really excited to hear from him because I have a special place in my heart for on air talent. So, TKBreezy, welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us.
No, thank you guys for having me. I had originally was going to ask to swap to Sunday because I didn't know if I was going to be able to slot this one in, but like the I actually have to commentate after this got moved back a little bit, so I was like, all right, perfect, this is great.
Well, we appreciate you, making time for this here. And then we understand you have to hop off and work right afterwards. Maybe you can, at the end, you can let us know where folks can catch you if it's streamed.
Okay.
But let's start by just introducing yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are, how you got into gaming, and what games you focus on, or what parts of esports you focus on.
Um, okay, so like I've been gaming for like most of my life. Like I'm 32 now. I'm pretty sure like I picked up my first controller when I was like 5, and it was just I don't know, it was a nice escape at first. It's nice to see fantasy worlds and things like that. But as I started to dive into esports, that was around the age of 18. I had moved to Maryland, and I didn't really have too many like friends up there, but I found Smash Brothers, because I was already like playing it all the time anyway. But I found that there were Smash Brothers tournaments, so I started going to those, and just really enjoyed the tournament atmosphere and meeting people, like-minded people, and people who also enjoy games and just in general like nerd culture and stuff like that. So that's how it started. And then after a while, there was just like an open setup at this mic or at this tournament that I was at, and I just jumped on the mic. And from that moment on, I was like, okay, this was like in 2010 too, that I was like, wow, this is commentary is really fun. So I've just kind of like taught myself basically how to commentate. I've like taken advice and like thrown it into like my style. And honestly, I've just always been like mostly a conversationalist, people person type person anyway. So it makes it a lot easier to like talk about games when you're really passionate about them, but you also like talking.
Absolutely, I definitely agree. Now, what was it about the Smash that attracted you to that game?
I think first because I always like fighting games and stuff, but Smash was like a big game in my like neighborhood throughout my like elementary um, friends. So basically, there was like big rivalries going on all the time. Like the kids across the street will play us, and we would, in doubles and stuff. And it's like, who's better or whatever. So the competition was always fun. And then on top of that, it was a bunch of characters that like I know and love, all like in one game. You know what I'm saying? Like I play a lot of Nintendo games, so it was easy to identify pretty much everyone in the first Smash, and then in the second Smash, and so on and so forth. And honestly, some of the times that I don't know the games, it's actually put me on to said game. Like for instance, when Pitt got into Brawl, I didn't ever play Kid Icarus, and then I went back to play Kid Icarus. Kid Icarus Uprising came out for the 3DS, and I love that game. So yeah, it was mostly that. I think it was mostly that, and just the atmosphere of the type of game it was. It's very it's there was no other game like it at the time that it came out.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Smash tournaments, if you've been to one, are they're its own thing. It's a special energy, so I could definitely understand that. Now, how does one get into commentating if somebody's interested? I mean, you definitely had the lucky break of finding an unattended mic.
Yeah.
But if somebody is interested, how do you break into that?
I think that for it depends on the game. So I think for like the esports games for like fighting games and things, it's really just going to your locals and hoping that like in trying to get on the mic that way. Because there's locals almost every week for all of the like not league type, not Overwatch types. And I'm sure there's locals for those too, but for like it's much easier to do fighting game locals, Smash locals and things like that. And they're usually run by like TOs that are like known, but the commentators who are like really known don't go to all of them. So there's always space at the earlier parts of the brackets to like try your hand at commentary. So that's like one way. The other way I think for like the higher end games such as like League and things is you have to continue to show interest in the game, and you have to like do your you have to be putting out content and doing your due diligence before you even get in contact with like Riot. It's easy for someone to find you if you're already making content for a game that you want to commentate. Say, for instance, you're doing patch note review or something like that for every patch notes that's dropped for league. You can make that a YouTube video. People will see that you understand what you're talking about, and then maybe make a reel. You know, maybe try to find, maybe do your own tournaments at your on your own stream. You know, like have 10 of your friends play and just commentate that match, and do things like that. Put that on YouTube. You gotta with certain games that have like established commentators and no real way to get in there, you have to kind of like make your own way in there by doing the things that you want, but putting out that own content yourself.
Absolutely. That's great advice. One other one that I heard is just take a game, like League of Legends, just take a professional match and, mute the professional commentators and then do your own commentary and put that
Yeah.
on your Twitch or your YouTube. And that's sort of gives a preview to folks that might be interested in hiring you as to what your skills are.
Yeah, yeah, I've definitely it's nothing. Luckily, I was like one of the pioneers for Smash commentary, but I know if I was trying to get into it now, that probably would be something I would try to do. I would like take top eights for other big tournaments that I might have been watching and either breaking it down or like recommentating it my own way.
Absolutely. Now, if you're interested in being a game commentator, do you have to focus on a specific game? How easy is it to be like, okay, today I'm commentating Smash and tomorrow I'm doing League of Legends and the next day it's Overwatch? Is that just impossible because of the level of knowledge that you have to have for each game, or is it possible in common?
Oh, it's possible. I mean, I'm doing that right now, to be honest. Like, I'm not after this stream or after this talk. I'm actually going to go commentate Brawlhalla, which is a game that I've been doing like on and off for, I'd say about 5 years. I think the thing about games or like of different genres is just studying things and keeping up with patch notes. I think that's actually kind of hard to do when it's multiple games and you may not have the full amount of time to dedicate to each of them. So like to do, let's say, League and then Overwatch and then like Valorant all in one. Those are games that are constantly updating, so you have to stay on top of those. And that can be a little rough, but it's definitely doable if this is like your livelihood. I think if this is your job, then like yeah, it's much easier to do. But if this is like your side thing, I think it's a little harder to focus on most multiple games at once.
Mhm.
But not for the lack of trying. I don't think that if you are interested in so many games that you are somehow keeping up with them, then go for it.
So, would you recommend that for somebody who's first starting out as a commentator, if they're doing it as a side thing, would you recommend that they only stick to one game at first?
Yeah, one maybe two if they're like closely related. I think it was much easier for me to hop into Brawlhalla because it is still a platform fighter, and even though there's drastic difference between Smash and Brawlhalla, some of the like core aspects stay the same. So it's easier to understand that. But for the most part, like I think yeah, if you're in one realm and you're trying to do like if you're into Call of Duty, I'd say, and then maybe you just like shooters, then maybe you can like start to branch out and look into maybe Overwatch or something. But if you don't have that much time, then yeah, definitely stick to one game and putting out content for one game and getting your foot in the door for one game. Because honestly, putting your foot in the door and getting up there in one game anyway will get you recognized so that you can actually start moving toward other games a lot easier than the first one that you got into.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So, what other advice is there like a top three or top five things for somebody who's starting out that you would say, hey, do these three things if you're starting out as a commentator?
Um, that's like I don't know. That's kind of hard because it really depends on like the game or what your atmosphere is. But for me, I would just say the top three things that worked for me was first do it because you love it. Before I ever got paid for Smash, I was doing it for free for like 6 7 years just because I loved talking about Smash. So find a game that you love. That's the first thing. Take constructive criticism because I know sometimes you're not going to be able to see the things that like you may not be doing well yourself, but someone being able to point it out to you, or maybe like, and I hate using the chat for this because like the chat usually is very rude about it, but like you can you can still find like little gems if you're like watching the chat and and like they'll say oh, and this commentator maybe he has to speak a little louder, or like I can barely hear him, or like he sounds a little unenthused or something. That's little things that you can take and like try to apply to your commentary style. um and three, it's just this is one thing that I did when I first started out, and I think this may help other people too. If you start commentating a lot, make a playlist of all your commentary, and then uh like at the end of the year, you go and watch the first video that you ever commentated, or whatever the first video that you put into the playlist, and then watch the last video and see if there's a drastic difference or any type of change that you've noticed of your own commentary from when you started or whenever your first part of that was to the last part.
That's great advice. Yeah, to see your own growth is a good way to learn. Like you're learning from yourself essentially.
Yeah, yeah.
What are some of the avenues that helped you really grow as a commentator? You know, where did you go to pick up new skills to learn, hey, here's something that I can do better?
Um, to be this is going to sound so cocky, but I don't watch anybody, so I pretty much learned everything that I know about commentary like from just doing it. It was I mean, obviously I've seen commentary before, so like I already know what it was. But I don't think there's anybody that I've like watched for commentary advice or like to follow a blueprint or anything. It's just like this is the way that I see the game, and I'm trying to share the way that I see the game with the audience. Um, and that's kind of like what I've always like. That's always what I stuck to. That's been my creed of commentary forever. I I want to make it so that everyone who is watching can understand at least the gist of what's going on and can be entertained all at once. So like we'll use looser terms. I'll still explain like terms that we are used that are used all the time for you know for new people. Like if I say new nair or whatever, you're not gonna if you never watch the game, you're not gonna understand that means neutral air, which is like just hitting the A button while you're in the air. So like I'll do stuff like that. I'll explain that like very quickly throughout a match if there's like a little downtime, and then like move forward so that like again everyone's has at least a base level understanding of what's going on and can now keep up with the game to the best of their own abilities. But yeah, no, I think most of the things that I've learned is just from trial and error, really, and that's what locals are good for. That's when you get your most of your practicing. You get to practice pretty much every week at a local if you go to them, and you can just kind of figure out what works for you and what doesn't work for you, or what works for you and what works for the audience and what doesn't work for you, the audience, and then start to like move and cater your commentary style to that.
That's very helpful. No, I mean, and learning by doing, that's absolutely that's the number one way. So trial and error, that's great advice. And I like what you said about explaining the terms,
Hmm.
because obviously, you know, the reason that we have commentators is because they add so much to the game because they understand the game at a deeper level. But the fact that you're also explaining the basics, you're really helping like the audience of that show, that game, that event can be so much broader, right? It can be anywhere from like somebody who doesn't understand esports to a professional gamer, because your commentary brings something for everybody.
Right.
So what do you do to prepare for an event?
Um, for like big events that well, I think it depends on what block I'm about to do. But let's say like for instance for Summit, right? Like I'm going to Summit next week. It's going to be a lot of like top players. It's an invitational basically, so it's just all top players. One of the things that I will do is check and see if I'll check Smash GG to see if they've entered anything recently. I'll check and see if they're still playing the same characters. I'll check and see if they have like certain records against certain people that are also there. That's the way that like I prepare as far as the stats side. As far as the mental side, it's just you gotta hype yourself up. It's just you got this. It's time to do your thing, um, and just get out there and do it. I think I used to be a little more nervous about like doing bigger gigs back then, but I feel like I haven't been nervous since like 2013. It's after a while like you just get so comfortable in the position that you're in that it's just like all right, man, like it's just another day in the life, or it's another day doing the same thing that you've been doing for the last 10 years or whatever. So it's it's much different now, but before yeah, it was definitely a lot more of like making sure I was getting the nerves and the jitters out the way, grab myself a big bottle of water so that I have it next to me, which is still something you should do by the way. But yeah, just it's a lot. I think getting the jitters out and then also maybe just doing a little extra research on the players, so that way if there is any downtime, you have something to fill it with.
Absolutely. And that sort of back the research that you do in the back about the players and their
Hmm.
matchups is really interesting. That's sort of the color that you really bring to the events, because everyone's watching the same thing you're watching, but if you know something they don't and you're telling the audience about that, that makes it so much more interesting. I want to talk to you about the jitters. So obviously it makes sense, if you've been doing something for a while, that you feel very comfortable doing it. In the beginning, did you have any sort of things, specific things that you would do to help you feel less nervous? Like what would happen? Like what would you do if you messed up on air?
If you mess up on air, you just kind of you got to move forward, because if you dwell on it too long, it's like there's nothing you can do to fix it. It's live. You can't go back. You can't rewind. It's just you have to move forward. You basically have to just you know. I mean, if you can admit fault, then admit fault. If there's something that you can correct, yeah, even if it's after a break. Say if I uh called a move wrong or something, or I was talking about frame data and then I was some frames off and we went to a break, I would come back from the break like, apologies, there was actually some misinfo on this move, was actually 9 frames instead of 7 frames, but it's still a very quick move or something like that. But if you if you mess up, you just gotta, like, it's gonna happen. It was bound to happen. There's a lot of information to remember about games, so eventually one day you may end up saying something wrong, which is one of the things that I've like kind of taught newer people, is to speak in like more vague terms, and don't use absolutes unless you're 1000% sure. So if you're going to talk about frame data, uh, say something is 5 frames and you thought it was 6. See, now you're wrong. But if you just say that move is fast, then you're correct. Because I mean, 5 frames and if 5 frames in any game is very fast, and like I'm like that's it's much easier to get by doing things like that instead of like always trying to be 100% correct if you're not completely sure of what you're speaking on. So, but as far as like messing up and stuff, yeah, you gotta just realize that every now and then you will mess up. I think the sign of a good commentator is messing up the least amount as possible. Like if you're just always up there saying the wrong thing, then you may have to go back to the drawing board. But if you say something like wrong once out of like a 3 hour block, then I don't think anyone's gonna fault you.
That's good advice. I think a lot of people that might be afraid of public speaking or afraid of being on air talent are afraid of being wrong, of messing up, right? And I think it's really important to hear from people like you who say, "Hey, we're all human. We mess up. Just move on. It's gonna
Yeah,
happen."
yeah,
That's great advice. Um, Now, what about calming your jitters, right? I understand that right now you're a complete pro, super comfortable. This is what you do. But starting out, for folks who are nervous, what are some things that can help them become less nervous because sometimes, that's the hurdle, right? To
mm.
like hit that go live button, right? On Twitch. Your nerves are the hurdle. What can some folks do?
I think that you just like. I think one of the things that I do a lot of deep breathing exercises. When I was younger, I would sit like in the commentary chair and just do a couple deep breaths, get ready, get my mind mentally prepared to like, all right, we're about to commentate this thing, we're about to do this thing, or even for streaming. All right, man, we're about to have a great stream. I'm gonna roll with the punches. I'm gonna get I'm gonna be entertaining. I'm gonna do whatever I can. Um, I think when it comes to jitters, I think everyone will have their own different way of like handling it. But one thing is to definitely get your body, in my opinion, like get your body like down to a less nervous position. And deep breathing actually does help. Like, I mean, it's, you take like a 5 second breath in, 5 second breath out, and do that a couple times. And it will kind of like relax the body a little bit, which is something that should kind of pseudo like make everything else relax for you, like feeling your body relax to start to relax your mind, and things like that. um but as far as like getting up the jitters for like certain tournaments and stuff, I think the last time I felt like I was nervous was Apex, like 2014. Not Apex, sorry, Evo 2014. It was the first time I had commentated a top 8 at Evo. I'm pretty sure 2013 or 14. And the first match I was like somewhat nervous, but like just halfway through the first match, I was like, well, they picked you for a reason. And then like it just went away. Like I don't know like how it happened. It just like it went away and like I just commentated like some of the best commentary I felt like I dropped that year. And by the end of it, I was, I was happy with how things went. I went back to my room, reflected for a little bit, and then I was good.
I like it. And I think a lot of times, once you get going, you just get lost in the game because it's what you love, right? So it's just, you have to get past being nervous in that first moment. But once the game starts and you're doing it, you can't help but be excited about the game.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Now, one thing that you mentioned is sometimes you get advice from chat, but be careful because chat can be a little bit toxic. So
Yeah.
somebody who is a well-known figure, talk to us about the haters. How do you keep yourself mentally positive if without fail somebody's going to come into chat and say something negative to you? How
hmm
do you deal with that?
Um, I'm actually not as good as I want to be with that. I've gotten a lot better over the years because I feel like it's so easy. Just being a human in general, it's so easy to like glance past all this like nice stuff that people say to just to see that one negative comment. Like everyone's like, "Oh, great time, great time, great time." I've loved your commentary. All this stuff could have 100 people say that, and then the 101st person says, "I hate your commentary," and now you're just like stuck on that. You know, that is something that like I've gotten a lot better with over the years. But I've also realized like I have the confidence in myself regardless of what anybody else says about me. But it is annoying to read like if someone is speaking negatively on you um, for whatever reason, right? Because more often than not, it's
Absolutely.
like it's a commentary style that maybe it's mostly a commentary style thing. Some people don't like, you know, color commentary. Some people don't like humor commentary. Some people just want like straight frame data and facts. But then there's other people who don't like just straight frame data and facts because it's boring to them. So sometimes like you have to just chalk it up to, all right, this guy just doesn't like the style. That's fine. I'm gonna move on. I am where I am for a reason. Like I've pushed myself this far and have gotten all these gigs and stuff for a reason. So one or two negative comments about me should not affect me. But when you're starting out, it's a lot harder to do because I feel like you're always getting compared to who's already there, and a lot of the times those are unfair comparisons because those people have been fan favorites for literal years or whatever, and you're just coming in. You're even regardless of what you say because you're not the fan favorite, they just will not um, they will not give you the fair shake until you like really prove yourself in that realm. So, I mean, I say I say look at the chat lightly. I don't think you should look at the chat while you're commentating, but I think if you ever go back and read it after the event's over, and you can like kind of, and you're good at deciphering actual criticism from hate, then go about doing that. That's kind of how I started to get better earlier on. I went back through the vods and kind of just looked at the chat and saw if people liked what I was saying or if there was areas I could improve on.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, like you said, that's learning from yourself, right? Because you're going through your own vods.
hmm
Absolutely. That definitely makes sense. And any kind of specific advice in terms of like staying positive, like you said, it's especially difficult in the beginning, when you're just trying to start out and people are just going to be negative no matter what, because they're either comparing you unfavorably or they just taking cheap shots because they have nothing better to do.
Right.
Any specific advice for folks like, hey, here's what really helped me like stay positive or stay in it and really, not let the trolls win.
I think the biggest thing, the only thing that really matters, well, like 90% of the thing that matters, because like yes, you still need other people to like you, but the 90% of the thing that matters is that you like your commentary first. You like whatever you're putting out. You can you understand why you're putting what you're putting out, and you love what you're putting out. Like for instance, like I think for me in Smash, one of the things that I like the most about that game that gets me excited is people adapting to things that were like, ruining them in the first game. So say like someone continues to keep rolling off the edge and they get blown up for it all through first game. So then by second game, they stop rolling off the edge and then they like, do like an attack off the edge, or they start doing standard get ups or jumps off the ledge or mixing it up. Now I'm like, okay, see, this guy is learning, he's understanding like where he was messing
Mhm.
up before, and that gets me excited. So like to me, I think everyone should find their thing about the game that gets them excited or something that they like. and just remember that like this is the things that you're trying to share with the rest of the audience, the world, if you will, and that you like what you're sharing when you are sharing it, and how you're sharing it as well. So that's what's kind of kept me mostly positive. It's like I really just love my own commentary. Like I could listen to me speak all day, and and I think once you get to that moment, like that's when you're like, all right, man. That's when I think it. One, not only does your confidence come out to the people who are watching you, but like you'll always have a good block.
I think that's amazing advice. I think that's because, like yourself first, like what you're doing first, because that means that you're having fun, you're being genuine, and you're bringing that energy that in the end that's what makes you interesting to watch.
Yeah.
I think that's great advice. Okay, well, we are about to wrap up, and we definitely want to let you go to get ready for your work. Do you have any last words of wisdom for anybody who's sitting and watching right now and thinking, I'm going to be a game commentator?
I did see one. There's one question in the chat about the frame data stuff. If you have access to like an app on your phone or whatever, like, and you can pull it up very quickly, then sure. Like, Smash has ultimate frame data, and that's something that like if we're talking about it, like I can pull it up and like find it really quickly. But if you don't have access to that, then I would say shy away from that and just talk about the game in its general sense. Um, as it's much easier to like talk about concepts than it is to talk about like the straight um like factual and frame data stuff like that to the broader audience. Some people might not even understand frames, so you could just be speaking directly over people's heads when you could just speak it in more broad terms and help people out. But the biggest advice I would say is make sure, like, when you're getting into it, man, do not lose sight of the fun that you're having for it. Eventually, you will start getting paid if you end up like um, up there in the ranks of commentary. But what's more important is that you are continuing to have fun while you're doing it. Because the minute that you stop having fun, it like with commentary, it definitely shows within your commentary. So commentate the games you love, commentate it because you love it, and event if you start getting paid, that's great. But for the most part, make sure that you love what you're doing.
That's great advice. Well, thank you so much, TKBreezy, for being here with us, for sharing your wisdom. We wish you luck in your commentary that's coming up today. And as for us, we're going to take a 15-minute break, and then we're going to come back with a panel about tournaments in the DMV. Stick